Said, I'm Freddie was still on McKay International. And when she called me and asked me to volunteer to moderate the panel, I said, I'll do it with under one condition, and that is that I don't want it to be a panel presentation. I really want it to be a learning experience and a dialogue amongst the participants and the panelists. So you're not going to hear a whole lot from me. I hope you have your questions. But what we're going to do is I've asked each panelist to spend about 5 minutes with an introduction of themselves, and also to talk about a particular either software or a process that they are using on some of their projects, whether it be from an owner's perspective, a design perspective, and how they are using that and leveraging it towards quality. And at the end of the day, we want to end with some good, hopefully, proof statements about how these systems have worked for those agencies or particular design firms, and how they have gotten quality improved, because it is a continuous improvement. Obviously, this morning we heard from Tim McKay in his definitions of quality, and so everyone has kind of a little different one, so we need to keep that in mind. So without further ado, and if anyone doesn't have any questions for me, I want to turn it over to our panel, let them introduce themselves, and talk a little bit about their particular document control, integrated program project delivery systems. Also, we're going to have y'all are laughing at me already, document control systems, talking about that. We're going to also carry on with an owner-managed cloud software program. Celia Gray will address that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about BIM to FIM. And then we're going to talk about project closeout. And I've been told that we'll probably also hear and possibly see Elvis today during this presentation. So y'all are in for a treat. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to the panel. Tim, would you like to start?
Thank you very much.
Hey, wait until I cue you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm not Elvis. So, well, good afternoon. My task today is my name is Tim McKay, and I get the pleasure of serving with the Dallas Area Rapid Transit. And my task there is growth and regional development. A lot of that focus is on growing the system. And over the last 12 to 13 years, we've doubled our system, our light rail system. Now we're expanding into streetcar, we're expanding our commuter rail system, which is, we'll double that probably in the next 5 to 10 years. And so I want to talk a little bit about integrated project delivery or integrated project methods. And when you say that, when I say that, there were really 3 things that came into my mind. From an integrated project delivery standpoint, there is the people part. And the people part is, as a public entity, we do not have a large staff. And we don't always get to cover all the disciplines that we need for a project. So one of the things that we integrate is we integrate industry professionals, much like some of you, consultants, contractors, into our program to fill in those gaps so that we have a consistent application that covers all the disciplines. The second thing I think of is process and procedure. And when you're doing an integrated project, these projects are getting more complicated every day. They're getting more complicated because of funding. They're getting more complicated because of territory that we operate in. They're getting more and more challenging. And we find ourselves working together. There was a day when we could do a project all on our own. We had all the resources. We had the funding. We had everything we needed. And we owned the corridor, and we could do that project all on our own. And now it's getting harder and harder. And so one of the things that we're doing is in process and procedures, checks and balances, auditing, quality assurance, quality control, quality oversight, quality management structure. And so as you're putting these programs together, one of the things that you want to be able to do from a local political standpoint is spread the roles. And you can very easily do that by spreading those roles in a check and balance system so that you can get more people to come in and you can maintain the check and the balance so you don't have somebody watching over or proofreading their own work. And then the third thing that I think of when I think about these projects is that we have to also team in strength. And so in North Texas, one of the things that we're doing is we are working together, the 3 transit properties working together to deliver consistency of projects. Instead of doing positive train control, each of the 3 of us, we're doing it together. We have mobile ticketing application that we've developed together. We have project delivery for other components that we're doing together. We get to do that because we spread our dollars on our fixed cost and it saves us money. So those are the 3 things. Probably the most important is the one in the middle with the checks and the balances that relates to quality and what we depend on your industry. With that, Freddie, that's the
Thank you, Jim. Bill?
Yeah, my name's Bill Thomsen. I'm the general manager and senior vice president for National Infrastructure Services for Urban Engineers. We're a program management consultant throughout the country. And I have responsibility in the northeast of the United States for our national work, but also our regional work in New York City and then New York State and New England. And the topic of my discussion today is how improved technology has impacted the quality management systems that we're implementing in the overall program. We've heard of a lot of these new project management systems or electronic systems, and it's issues related to configuration management that can arise when you implement a sophisticated web-based project control system. So what I'm going to do is try to provide a few examples with the use of Constructware, which is one of the systems that's been used on our mega projects in New York City. We're overseeing the Sun Access Second Avenue Trade Center project. And so with that, how different project documents, drawings, specifications, estimates, and project correspondence can be stored and accessed by all the project participants from the web. So this is it's a document control database that allows a web-based system to have a centralized location. So now, most of you have probably seen that, but the issue is then, as you have all your plans and specifications and transmittals and design documents and design calculations and all the aspects of the project correspondence on a web-based system that can be accessed, then how do you make sure that you have configuration management control for quality records as the project moves ahead? So implementing these kinds of things has been a challenge. We've all experienced how you, as a designer developed, go into the checking or the quality management system for design products and how those challenges exist. But for a complete project management system like Constructware, making sure that the system is capturing all the records is a key element of it. So what are some of the major impacts that we've seen with a very robust system like this? Well, there's version controls of the various documents in the software. There's traceability issues. If somebody happens to print things out and use them, then all of a sudden that becomes an issue. We know they're going to do that. It's just a matter of thinking about it. Effective tracking of checking systems that have been developed, and various other things. So what do we see that provides, and this is just one system, there's numerous systems out there. We'll hear more from the others about their other examples of project control systems that are electronic-based, web-based systems. It comes down to the discipline of the execution in the way the system is being implemented. So each individual that gets access to the system and the folks that are managing the system have to be disciplined in the way they handle it, allow access at various levels, provide certain levels of security, and make sure that there is a continual maintenance of these types of project control systems. Some examples of failures include changing software midstream. We had one project where the system was changed from Buzzsaw, which is another commonly used software system, to Constructware at midstream. But you can imagine the kind of havoc that will, cause with all of the records and how that has to get migrated in. Using the wrong revision for various documents is another issue. We've seen times where the current official revision that's being used to build the project is a certain revision, and then as designers or project staff try to advance the project, they drop off a third revision or a new revision because they want to give their friend or their colleague a heads up about what's happening, what's currently moving ahead. And then, having the same document, because with electronic versions, it's very easy to have the same document. You just press copy and paste it up. But having the same document in different databases, which often happens. We know that we like to say that everything is always well organized and perfectly in its proper location, but having it in different, same file in different databases. And then lastly, not destroying or marking obsolete documents. So that's the kind of thing that you end up seeing all the time. You should be deleting stuff that is no longer current or filing it away. So with that, those are the kinds of issues that we run into from a quality perspective and implementing a quality management system with this kind of robust software. But what we'll do is try to learn from our colleagues here about ways that we can improve that. Largely, these are very flexible systems that provide benefit to the overall project. But beyond these minor implementation issues, there are things that need to be done to learn from each other about how we implement.
Thank you, Bill.
Area transit system, and I hired in as a quality assurance manager during preliminary engineering of our first New Start Light Rail project. During preliminary engineering and final design, our consultant used Excel spreadsheets to manage their records for their logs. And in construction, our construction management consultant actually had in their contract that they would manage our records for the project. And they used Expedition software. They also did a lot of scanning, and they had a records room. And if we wanted our records, we had to get them between 8 and 5 p.m. And they also kept all the records in Expedition. It was a web-based system, so we could go in and view it at any time. But there was no interaction with the contractor. The contractor had their Expedition, and our construction management consultant had their Expedition. And so they would cut and paste everything back and forth between the two softwares, never meeting. And sometimes, if you know Expedition, it numerically numbers each non-conformance, it numerically numbers each meeting minutes, may or may not match exactly one-to-one RFIs. One's number might be 11, the other might be 13. So there was some issues and confusion, but the biggest issue that our agency had was the change management process that our contractor was using. They were not happy with Expedition for that, so they had a second software to manage the change management and the finance side. So those were lessons learned for us was when we did our next project. This was supposed to be about a $327 million project. Now that we're working on the Blue Line extension, it's a $1.2 billion project, much bigger, and we felt a much greater need to have more real-time numbers on our finances and actually have more control of the process. So for preliminary engineering and final design, we use Microsoft SharePoint, and we managed our own records in that system with a nice set of metadata, all tied to work breakdown structures. Very searchable. We've got like 20,000 records in there right now. And for construction management, the software that I'm going to share with you is the eBuilder software. And we had an antiquated financial system at the City of Charlotte called GIAC. And our financial group led the charge for the procurement of this software. They wanted something that would interact with the GIAC system. And actually the city is in the process of going to a huge project to incorporate something called our ERP for the whole city, but that will not be done in time for our project. So this software is for this Blue Line extension project. The nice thing about the eBuilder it will allow the contractor, they will be using it, our construction management consultant will be using it, and we'll be using it. There's a lot of process workflows where we send them information, the RFIs processed through there, the non-compliances processed through there, submittals processed through there. We do meeting minutes and action items, so it'll pop up in your work. If you get an action item, you'll get it in your inbox. It'll say you have a ball and court item, and it stays in your ball and court till you handle it, and it'll escalate if you don't address it. It is not, we had a 9-month introductionary period. E-Builder came in, worked with us to set up the system. We thought that it would be up and ready to go with our first contract. It's a little more complicated than we thought. We consider it a work in progress. We have 2 of our utilities contracts going now, and we're working with our contractors, but it's still, there's definitely some problems that we're working through as we move forward. But we do have our change control process in there. We expect it to eliminate a lot of mistakes. It does give that real-time information to everybody on the project, and it gives us control of the process as well.
As Tim had mentioned earlier in his morning presentation, one size doesn't fit all. And you see that when you were talking about some of your civil contractors who have a very small contract, having them work in a robust system such as the E-Builder sometimes can be challenging and, quite frankly, fairly expensive because I have to dedicate some personnel to it. Darren?
Good afternoon. My name is Darren James. I'm with KAI Texas. I've been in this profession about 21 years, so I remember what it was like to take a sheet of Mylar with pin bars and start to draw. So what I'm going to talk about is the evolution of that into BIM. And BIM is basically a collaborative tool and process. It goes all the way from simple lines and diagrams all the way to a facility management software. What you're starting to see is that it allows you to have better quality control through the process. What you have to think about is that it's a process. It is software, but it involves more than just the software and the technology or the hardware. It actually involves the training of your staff. The industry has actually started to embrace it a little bit more. Back in 2007, there was about 28% of the entire A&C community that was BIM worthy or BIM ready. That's both on the design and the construction side. In 2012, we're looking at 71% adoption across the industry. The amazing thing is that the contractors are embracing it a lot more because they can see the return on the investment a lot better, and they can turn those returns into real dollars that the owners actually see as well. We as architects like it because it collaborates and allows you to do spatial coordination. Clash detection is just one tool, but it allows you to collaborate and work with your multiple disciplines, specifically in the engineering, the architecture, structures, and MEP. The other thing we're finding, and Freddie just mentioned, the large and small. There's a significant amount of investment in it. The larger firms have adopted it at a 91% rate, where your smaller firms are at about 50%. But of all the users, 62% are seeing that it is a significant benefit over the pin bar and Mylar that you used previously. The benefits that we see are your higher quality work, your design visualization. It's easy to show. Not everybody in our industry, or not everybody in our profession, or even some of our lay people don't see what we see in 3D dimensions. So it's easy to take this and actually build a project, whatever it is, virtually, so that they can actually walk through a space. And that's what BIM allows you to do. Now, some of the deficiencies are, when you first start with BIM, it takes about 30% more effort to do the work. So you're going to see a 30% dip in your productivity, but as your staff and as your systems become more robust, you're going to start to pick that up, and you're going to see some of that benefit come back when you get into the construction administration phase. The biggest thing and the biggest point I want to stress is that when you start the process, you want to make sure, I think everybody can echo this, is that you want everybody on the same page. It's garbage in, garbage out. So if there's an expectation from the owner, from the contractor, from the design professional, be it architect, be it the mechanical engineer, be it electrical or plumbing, make sure that everybody is on the same page of what that output is going to be. Because it takes a lot of effort to put in the information, and it can slow your process down. It can slow down the software, it can slow down the productivity of that staff when we put it in. So if you're looking to take this project from not just a coordinated set of documents that somebody can build from, but that you want to translate it into a facility management software protocol at the latter stage, you want to get in, and you don't need to put every nut and bolt or every screw that's in the metal studs that's in this wall, but you want to know what the mechanical system filter number is. You want to put that information in. So you want to sit down at the very beginning of the process, the very beginning of the project, and establish what that level of development is so that everybody understands that going forward. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Clark.
Thank you, Darren. Clark.
I'm Clark Brother, Vice President for Robert Kistner. We're a private consulting firm that provides quality management services on large design build or P3 projects. Over the last 10 years, we've probably been involved with over $8 billion worth of construction. And this is where Elvis comes into the building. I left my sideburns home. But we have a proprietary software that we market to provide this service as a part of our management structure, and its nickname is Elvis, Electronic Laboratory Verification Information System. It's actually grown from just laboratory information. It's pretty much a full-blown document control system where we track on design build, all the design comments through the design phase, all the DIRs from the inspection, the QA from the oversight, everything that's logged into the system. So as a closeout, kind of looking at this of how technology has helped, I just come off a $1.2 billion project in Utah called the I-15 Corridor Project. It's 26 miles of new freeway, 54 bridges, completed in 3 years, and with the use of Elvis being transparent, web-based, things being loaded within 24 hours for the owner, the contractor to review, see what was going on with the project. We were able to get this project, all the data, the documentation submitted to the owner such that within 3 months of them getting their final completion, the project was closed out. They released their final retainage and helped save them a lot of money because they were on a job for 3 years trying to gather paperwork and show the owner that they had done the job that they said they would do and everything like that. So, you talk about new technology. It's iPad friendly. We load up all the drawings, we load up all the specs, so the inspectors are out in the field entering their DWR, their data reports live right into the iPad. There's no paper and then transferring back. They got the plans right there they can pull up, they got the specs they can look at, they got their checklist, kind of all right there. We kind of rolled that out live on this project. The contractor, after 3 months, decided it was pretty good because all of his foremen were coming to our inspectors to find the current set of plans to build the work, so they decided maybe they ought to get their guys' iPad instead of using paper for jobs.
Thank you, Clark. As you can see from the panel, a variety of different programs, a variety of different uses for that technology. Ultimately, at the end, hopefully the stories that you're going to continue to hear talk about at the end of the project, at the end of the development, there's some quality benefits to it. What I'd like to do is turn it over to y'all. I'm going to use this little microphone. I'll come over to you. You can ask the panel the question. I'll ask them to keep their microphone up front. Have a hand? Yes, ma'am. You could identify yourself and then ask a question.
Deborah Beveson. Got a question for Celia. You mentioned you were working with the e-building program and getting that switched over. My question to you is, you said you were struggling here a little bit. What is the biggest lessons learned that you've learned so far with that, and what could you tell me? Because we too are looking at multiple different programs to utilize, and e-building was one of them. not that we're settled on anyone, but, you know, we're in the process of looking too. But what was your biggest lessons learned with that? Is it describing your business processes up front? What was it?
Well, part of it is the implementation of the project, and I've seen this with our internal IT group. They went through an initial testing phase after we kind of went through a discovery phase and identified our needs, and then they made they go off and make the changes and bring it back and you do a testing. But then when we gave them our, we identified the issues, then they go back and they make the corrections and say, we're done. And we didn't really have that secondary testing right away then. So that's an important part of the project. And of course, there's never enough time to do everything you need to do. But we needed more testing with the user group. And also, additionally, we need training. We see the importance of an ongoing training program and improvements in the user manuals.
If I could add one more thing, having used eBuilder in the past, there are so many modules within that system that you can utilize. And really, Celia said it best, you have to have ample time to train for those modules. And you really have to set up the modules to your benefit, not to eBuilder's benefit. I think that's a fair statement.
And in the schedule, they thought the training was the end. We're going to come in and do the training and then we're done. But when they did the training, many other issues were identified at that time.
I'm not sure who this is for, but I'm a contractor, and our firm builds projects ranging in value from 100,000 to over $1 billion. It's kind of a lot mix, but we've calculated that the dollar value at which the tablet-based hardware and software that we are currently using makes sense is any project over $1 million in value, which is most of what we do. I'm wondering if either any of you have calculated what the sort of lower limit is at which point the software that you're using begins to, not have the appropriate cost benefit. The way we calculated ours was when the percentage of the superintendent's salary that's devoted to doing all the field work and the office work is more than the percentage of the total cost of construction that is likely to be lost due to rework, that's our break point. And the magic number is around 3%. That's what Engineering News Record calculates as the lower limit, the lower level of typical rework costs of construction.
I don't know if I really have a number there, but I've got 20 years of contracting experience as well, working for large firms. So going back to electronics in tablet form, I'll kind of say in our firm, we didn't have a break-off. We always used electronics for our management of superintendents, productivity reports, that kind of stuff, quality reporting. For us as RABA, with our system, we don't really see a break-off. We always use the iPads. We just modify the level of Elvis that we provide to that contractor on that project. Right? It may be a little bit more based and robust or something. Because even though it's a proprietary software, we do modify it for each individual project. Go out there so it meets the needs. For us, it's cheaper than paper.
Darren, would you like to comment in reference to the BIM?
With the tablets?
Sure.
It helps tremendously when you're doing punch lists, because now you can go out with a tablet-based floor plan and actually key the specific punch list item to a spot, take a photograph with your iPad, and then it goes back into a report. It allows our project administrator to go back in and develop a full punch list. So we found that we don't have a break off either. It's just a lot more efficient, because you're finding a lot of your staff are moving in that direction. A lot of your younger staff coming right out of college, they've been in digital domain for so long that it's hard for them to kind of go back and forth. So if we can keep them in one domain, it just becomes a more efficient operation for us.
Bill, how about talking about the Constructware document control system? Do you have a threshold there?
I really don't. I think that this type of system is something that has been used on very large projects. So, but I think you could use it on a smaller project. But I don't have any data that would speak to a specific threshold. It's probably more about how well trained and ingrained your staff are in the system that they are currently using, and then how robust the system is. If all your staff and the contracting community all of a sudden get used to using a particular standard, then it's sort of like the way iPhones took off or other things have taken off. Once there's a user group that's friendly with it, then all of a sudden it becomes a good platform, and the cost to implement becomes very low.
Any additional questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
Well, let me see if I can remember what I was going to ask. Okay. Actually, there were two just observations that I was hoping would stimulate some conversation. My experience on my recent project is that there is a little bit of software envy. Okay, and everybody's got their own little pet area, and they're going to have their software system that's going to be the buzz, that's going to be the savior of the project, and the like. And I think that there's some inherent inefficiencies and overlaps that happen in that world. So from my perspective, you almost have to be like a little guerrilla warfare-ish with your, if you're going to be introducing some quality assurance, quality control software, where you have a document control system, where you have other systems in place. And that was, I think that was kind of what I was just trying to open up, is how do you control that? Oh, and the second part now I remember, is that what we're trying to do with our quality control system is have interactivity with our client. And the client is resistive because we're hosting the software. They're worried about security, they're worried about integrity, and that kind of thing. And so I'm just kind of throwing that out. Competing softwares on a project, a little bit of software envy, and then the trust, building trust, and who hosts the software in terms of truly being able to collaborate with the interested parties.
I'm going to start. I think one of the things you go back to is at the very outset of the project, you put the IT people in the room, because every firm has an IT person. And if you don't have them talking to each other, you'll never get that communication protocol established. And there will be, it won't be software envy so much as my software doesn't talk to his software, doesn't talk to his software, because we've got a firewall that blocks a certain carrier or something. And so you've got to put them in the room at the same time that you're sitting down establishing what the design protocols are. You've got to establish some software interactive communication standards and protocols as well, because everybody's across the country. And then also you've got firewalls. And then you go back to the point to where some clients won't allow you to host because they want to protect that data. So I think you put everybody in the room and have that communication established as part of your project communication protocol to start the project.
So for us with our software, we've handled that in a few different ways. TextJob, when we work in Texas, we do a dump once a week or every 2 weeks. We put it out in a file, they vet it, and then they upload it into their system so they have the data. On Utah, a little bit more trusting relationship, I'll say, between us and the client. We just gave them some back access to the database that they can go pull at any time they want to prove that we were not changing the data. They didn't really ever do that. They just waited until the end of the project. We gave them a backup with all the data transferred across. But like Chuck's on Tappan Zee, we're up there with him. They're concerned a little bit about that data, but we're never had a breach of security on our side. So.
Yeah, one advantage that we have of being an agency is, it's in everybody's contract that they're going to use the software from our third-party test agency, everybody. So, that's it. We've got the ground rules set. Between us and our construction management consultant, we both have technology people with administrative rights. And one thing that our construction management consultant found out early on is that they decided they need to create an upload folder for the contractors because the contractors weren't consistently setting the metadata correctly as they uploaded the documents. So they actually just upload to an upload folder and then it gets moved over. They're still in the workflow process, but yeah, there is that, we don't like the way you're doing it. We'd rather do it ourselves.
I would give you an agency perspective that has to do with really three things. The first one is, from our standpoint, we want to be consistent. And so it doesn't really matter as much to me that what the software is and who brings it. What it really matters is, number one, is it collaborative? Can we all get the data that we need, or the reports that we need that's generated off of the same data? We try and put whomever has the best chance of success, whoever has the highest probability. And so if I'm an owner and I specify e-builder, but then I turn around and hire a design builder, and they're not familiar with e-builder, then sometimes you automatically set yourself up for a slow start to the project. And so generally what I would do, and I'm right in the middle of this with an O&M contract, and that is that this is the type of data we want to be able to collect and have access to. And you outline what the points are, or what the data points are, who's responsible for inputting what, and then you get your IT staff to work together to fill in the blanks on what kind of report do you need, or I need, or he or she, or whomever. The other thing is, with respect to the size of the projects, one of the things that, from an owner's perspective, we get involved in, when we make a decision to go forward with something, it's all about scalability, but we're not going to use this for that, and this for this, and this for that. It makes it too complicated, and early on, when I told you that we use a lot of extensions of our staff, that makes it even tougher. And so we rely on technology, we rely on some consistency of application so that everybody is submitting the same data. It's hard enough, it drives me crazy when I get inspectors' reports, and the only thing it says is, I didn't see anything wrong today. Well, that tells me nothing, right? I want to see what you saw, and I want confirmation that what you saw was within requirements. Yeah, we're actually there. I have cameras to determine that, but so it's a matter of, it's hard enough sometimes to get people to think in the right perspective. So you try and use automation. If scalability, consistency, and then the other thing is ownership of the data. Why is that so important to an owner? To a public agency, we get Public Information Act requests all the time, which means we then have X number of days to go and dig up this data and then submit it. So one of the reasons why we are so pragmatic about owning the data, it's not that we have software envy, although we do sometimes, but it's really more about how easy is it for us to access the data, and we don't want to get stuck in this perpetual do loop of maintenance agreements and things like that, just to be able to go and retrieve data at the public's whim. So those are the three things that I would give you from a public standpoint.
Just a minor comment on the Constructware side. I haven't seen any problems with security or the depth of the system and people being able to access it or have rights related to it. In fact, there's a lot of confidential and privileged information that can be provided to certain people, and just through their login or whatever privileges they have, they're allowed to see that information. So that makes it very valuable. If you have a centralized location, you have every project participant given a certain degree of security or access to all the project data, you can then use it as one central clearinghouse for all the project information.
So there's and have good explanations as to what they looked at. The problem is, when they go to download or upload that into SharePoint, it takes a long time to do it. And there's a big complaint. Every audit we do in the RE, that's a complaint they have. So, how in your systems have you conquered that, or have you at all? That slow upload time. How do you speed that up?
Well, I mean, what Darren said, I think is the key, that you need to have very sophisticated IT people that are setting up protocols for the level of information that you need to be downloaded right away. So you can take photographs, and the photographs that you want to put in the system may need to be saved or recorded at a certain rate. And if they're going to be uploaded from the field into one document, but if they're going to be then saved for a permanent record, then they get removed from that machine. So they're just different. You need to have sophisticated people that understand that this is part of the work process.
Is there any software out there that can speed that up?
Well, I wish I could tell you that we had an answer. I've had IT people in a room and beat them about the head and shoulders on a regular basis, and it doesn't help. I can tell you this: sometimes it's a matter of the practice in the field. At one time, we were taking photos and we're saving them as PDFs, and they suck up a lot of memory. So sometimes it's very simple things on practice and procedure that you can modify. The biggest thing that I would tell you is, whatever you think you need from a storage, from a computing, from a horsepower standpoint out of your system, triple it or quadruple it, because it's cheap. It's cheap to buy it now, and it's cheap to get the horsepower, and you won't be sorry later. Too often, our IT groups, this is not a shot against the IT folks, but they come in and they try and do things very economically, and they use off-the-shelf equipment, and those are all good principles, but if it's not getting the job done, it doesn't matter.
Again, the panelists will be here during the reception. My cell phone continues to beep and buzz and says, "You're out of time." So I apologize. It's been very quick, but I apologize. Again, please thank the panelists. One quick reminder, if you've not filled out an evaluation, please fill it out, leave it at the back of the room. This is how we learn about programs, how we can enhance the value of programs, and what you honestly think about it. So again, thanks again, everyone, for attending.